allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, Joe, if you give us a report out of closed session.
Certainly. For item A, it was motioned by Robert and seconded by Diane to approve 2 certificated and 1 classified leaves of absence rather. And that was approved by a vote of 5-0. There was no action taken on items B or C.
Okay. Review and discussion of district's initial proposal contract negotiations with WTA and successor contract negotiations 2020-21 school year.
All right. So we have come to an agreement that we would like to reopen, and I think that I actually, nope, it was right in this one, that we will reopen the contract for 21-22 school year as a successor contract and hopefully work toward a multi-year agreement. The district would like to talk about health and welfare benefits, leaves, vacancy assignment and transfers, reopeners, the extra duty pay schedule, and teacher evaluation and evaluation summary. So this is just, there's no action necessary for this. This is just our initial sunshine.
And item B.
So we also have received from WTA their sunshine back to us. They have definitely want to talk about salary and benefits, and then they're also going to be soliciting member input for additional items. And we will start that processes after we have the opportunity to set a board meeting. I got direction from the board that to go ahead and schedule that, and then we'll advertise it and get that information out. So Rochelle and I will work on that this week.
Perfect. Look forward to that. WTA comments.
Good evening. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I would like to start with an event that WTA is going to be hosting at Old Redwood Grove Park on October 30th at 12 o'clock. I can put it in the chat, Trina, if you didn't get all, or Rochelle, that's right. The purpose of this is to undo some barriers that may have come up over the years between the different entities. WTA would like to invite CSEA and admin and the school board to join us at 12 o'clock, play some games, eat some tri-tip, and just basically break bread, chew meat together. You'll be getting an invite soon, but we're just looking to build a stronger connection with all the people that we work with that make this job possible. Sound good?
Yes.
Short notice, but it could be fun. I hear there's some cornhole competitions going on. All right. As you know, we had a couple of MOUs that came through. One was for independent study. It cleaned up some of the language about what was expected if a student came in and out of the program. And then the other one was the elementary school prep times. They were happening during the work day, but not the school day. The contract says, our contract says that our prep times happen during the school day. And it wasn't happening that way. And so we wrote an MOU as a temporary measure because the reason we don't have a PE teacher, which is when we get our prep times, Are you familiar with any of this? Have you heard this, or am I presenting this concept to you for the first time?
No, we're good.
Okay. Anyway, it's a very temporary MOU. We hope, because we really hope that the ESSER funds coming in are going to provide us a PE teacher at both sites. Last week, I believe, I don't have the date exactly, but Mr. Aldridge held a community input meeting regarding the spending of COVID funds. I wasn't able to go, but I heard there were roughly 7 people. I think only one was a parent and the rest was admin or teachers. And I think we need to get more community, like a bigger community than just that, talking about it. So I would suggest that for the next meeting, if there's anything we could do to promote it on our school Facebook pages, or we just have to reach out a little bit stronger so everybody has input and isn't saying, well, when did it happen? How did it get spent? So I just happened to hear about the last one by chance. I tried to let people know, but I really only had a couple days notice to do anything with the information. So we hope we do that.
Just to let you know, that was the day that Facebook went down. So there was really, really restricted communication that day in regards to the social media kind of communication, which a lot of people rely on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a lot of numbers get thrown around about the money. And I know that from previous experience, when people don't feel like they've had an opportunity to really speak on it, they get frustrated and they can't speak on it unless they really know when and where and how to do so. So, okay, moving on, we also WTA filed a grievance regarding the high school, the bathrooms at the high school, many of which were locked and closed for repairs, and students were having difficulty. It was taking a long time for them to go to the only available bathrooms. So we got an absolutely amazing response from Mr. Aldridge. It was immediate. It was 2 pages long and very detailed response to all the information, and a self-imposed deadline of October 29th. So we're looking forward to seeing all those things checked off as much as possible by October 29th. He also did another really wonderful thing I want the community to know. This last weekend, he came to Blosser and pressure washed the sidewalks that were looking pretty bad, with a lot of spilled food and milk and things like that, where the kids are sitting to eat their lunch. And it needed to be done, and he came and did that, and I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you for that. I know that Mr. Aldridge is aware. I want to be sure that everybody on the school board is aware there is not PE happening at Brookside, has not happened since the beginning of the school year, in terms of a PE teacher taking the kids out and teaching PE. Teachers are also now responsible for those minutes, which used to be their prep time. So now they're not getting the prep, and they're doing another lesson, basically, if they can. We know that there's an effort to fix the problem in place, but the reality is people are having a really hard time. There's more things that need to happen to keep our kids COVID safe. There's longer times to transition with all the COVID safety protocols. To not have any time to prepare and catch them up with perhaps not lost learning, but just a gap. We have a gap to bridge. We have to catch them back up. And I know that you know this. But the reality is the teachers are the ones that show up and deal with the little faces and the kids every day and the needs that they have. And right now I'm hearing from all the personnel that they have never been so strapped. They have never been so exhausted. And you may hear that from other people who come to the meeting, but that's what I hear a lot. And I need you guys to know that. We've got to fill the missing custodial positions. We've got to get a 7th grade core teacher. We need PE teachers. I believe we have positions open in almost every department at every site. And we teachers want to know, what else can we do? You know, I noticed yesterday, Willits had posted the job openings. And a whole bunch of teachers had reposted it on their pages. We need help. And so I'd like to reach out not to the community, not just to the school board members, but anybody reading these words or hearing these words, put in an application. We need you. Your kids need you. Moving on. Homecoming, varsity and JV at the high school both won the homecoming game. That's the first time in 10 years. And they're feeling pretty good about that. There is a student movement to reduce or eliminate the usage of plastic bags at the high school. That's pretty, yeah, that's pretty neat. October 29th at 2 o'clock, 4th and 5th grade will be doing the Thriller dance. I believe Brookside also is doing it at that time. If not, I'll clarify later. We've had 2 schools go on field trips, one to the pumpkin patch and I forget, Sherwood went somewhere. And so far so good. And we want to do more field trips. Bechtel Grove is doing a behavior reset and reteaching expectations because there's been a rise in bullying, and the adults are getting social emotional learning micro learnings. Probably yeah, we all need those. We need macro learnings. Let's see, we've already talked about that. We need to get the blacktop at Brookside cleaned as well. Honestly, if I had a power washer, I'd be there cleaning it myself. So if anybody has a power washer and wants to go clean our school areas where the kids are eating, that would be fantastic too. We love community help.
And Tessa, the Brookside was done the week before this last weekend. So I did get out there. And
Oh,
so, not showing up
okay.
one school.
Awesome. And it's important that we know that tables have been ordered. We know that positions have been posted. We know we're not complaining to you. We're reaching out to the community because this is one of the venues in which they hear our voice, right? So we're just trying to amplify the voice and say, hey, there's a need. Come do stuff, COVID safely. So thank you very much. That wraps up my report.
Thank you, Tessa.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I would like to say that I'm going to be there on October 30th, but unfortunately I'm going to be in Colorado. So hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon on October 30th. We are at CSEA. Dan.
Hello, everyone. Am I being heard?
Yes, you are.
I'd like to start by thanking Trina, HR. She's got her hands full trying to find people to work, and I'm sure she's looking high and low and under rocks and up a tree and whatever else you can think of. But she's definitely earning her buck this month, that's for sure. The classified staff, we've been hammered. We've been hammered by people being out. We've been hammered by not filling positions. we've been hammered by a lot of things. One of the things that I think is really important, as Tessa said, people are tired and strapped. People are tired and strapped everywhere in the district. But the most important thing we need to remember that if you're tired and strapped, don't take your frustrations out on others. You know, work it out some other way, because we have to stay together and division isn't good. CSAs, we're working on our openers. We'll have them ready next month, our sunshine. And we're also working on a couple MOUs right now with Joe. And again, it's even the conditions at the restrooms at the high school. Yeah, they're old, but a lot of it ain't our fault. There's a lot of other things in play that are happening to destroy personal property there. So everybody's just got to try to hold it together and work together. And we'll figure out a way through this. Go, Trina. Keep digging for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Board comments, let's start with Diana.
Responsive already. Oh, I know this is conference week. So thank you, teachers, for getting the parents and scheduling that, and parents for coming and seeing the progress of your children and getting used to the school year and your concerns that you can sit down with your teacher and have those settled with, or because this is the important part for kids to show their progress for the rest of the year. So thank you, teachers, and being so flexible, and thank you, parents, as well.
Oh,
I received a lot of information this past month about bathrooms at the high school and various other issues, the Pee-wee games and things like that. I have a couple of communications that I'll take care of during regular public comments, but I agree with Tessa 100%. It'd be great to have a get together, especially at a neutral spot like the park, where maybe some open discussions can go on so we can go for mutually beneficial solutions. I've got an appointment to speak with the unemployment office about the needs of Willits Unified. Not anything official or anything. I just happen to know a couple of unemployed people. So I'm going to look into that. I was canceled once, and so I have to make a new date to go talk to them. But they have some advertising advantages that maybe our district doesn't have. And so I'm hoping that will work out. We really do need just about every part of the district to be beefed up with personnel. And certainly anyone with a lot of solutions should maybe drop by and add them to their list of things to talk about. It's easy to complain, it's hard to fix. So, that's been my biggest deal all this month. Other than naturally, yay to homecoming, that was a good thing. And I really do hope that especially some of the issues at some of the sites get themselves taken care of. In particular, the TikTok challenges, I certainly hope those are all getting erased. And that's all for now.
Jeannie?
Hi, everybody. I've been trying to not visit campuses a lot because I know that the campuses are trying to reduce the number of extra adults on campus to try to combat any spread of COVID. So I've been not going to a lot of functions, but I did this month go to attend the ESSER funding program that was held as a Zoom meeting in regards to how to spend ESSER funds. And I also attended at Blosser, reading in service for both Brookside and Blosser teachers, and it was very informative. And I also want to say that I know how deeply everybody is working and to try to make the school year go for the kids. And it is taking great extra effort on everybody's part in order to deal with the COVID restrictions and the restrictions imposed by being low staffed. The school board members get a communication from the California School Board Association every day, I think during the week. But there's I think it was in today's, there's something from Education Week that more than 3/4 of district leaders and principals say they're experiencing at least moderate staffing shortages in their school buildings this year. 15% that said that shortages were very severe, 25% said they're severe, and another 37% classified staffing challenges as moderate. But just 5% of administrators said they weren't experiencing any staffing shortages in their school. So this is, and I guess 18% said their shortages are mild to very mild. So anyway, this is statewide. And I know that it's causing difficulties for the staff at each site as well as for the administration. And so I'm really aware of that. And but I want to commend everybody for how hard they've been working in regards to keeping kids safe from COVID. And that what we're doing is working. If you look at our numbers are really good. And I know from my own experience that there was an outbreak at Brookside in one class, and it involved a few students and the teacher. But that my granddaughter, who takes the bus to Kids Club, when she got to Kids Club, she was tested because she had ridden the bus with one of the kids. So it was found positive. And so the school district has a system in place that's working to take care of the spread of COVID. And I know it's requiring a lot of effort on everybody's part. And I just want to say I really appreciate it to everybody. And I also want to commend our superintendent. I say to him just about every time I see him, I say, I don't know why anybody would want to be a school superintendent. I don't know how they sleep at night, all the details that they have to consider, all the responsibilities they have. And you never know from one minute to the next what's going to end up, a phone call, somebody coming into your, well, whatever. And you have to be aware of things and be on top of things, and Joe's doing a really commendable job. And it even goes to things like cleaning laptops at schools. So anyway, I really appreciate Joe and the work that he's doing.
Thank
and the work that everybody else is doing.
Robert? Hello. I just want to say great job to the floats that were built there at homecoming. They were just so well done, and every class had great floats. I've been to a lot of homecomings. This is the first time I went where there wasn't one or two classes that, well, they did a moderate job, but they did a great job. So hats off to Mary Colvin and to Mike Colvin for their work and putting that on. They did a fantastic job, and I'm sure there were some students and parents involved there, but good job. Also, probably just a few of you know, they started work on the pool dome. So they're drilling holes out there, and I'm just hoping that opens up the pool to the community during the winter time. I see the water aerobics people out there, and they really utilize that. Now that maybe they'll be able to utilize it throughout the year. I had an opportunity to sub for the principal at Willits Charter School. And I know they come in and they present their plan and so forth every year. And I just want to say that the director, Jennifer Lockwood, and the staff, they're working hard, just like we do, trying to do good things and good works for children. And so they're working hard out there also. The Bechtel School. I have a daughter going to Bechtel School, and my daughter just loves it out there. She's involved in student council. She feels safe and she enjoys her teachers. So thank you, Maria, and to your staff for everything you do for me personally and for all the other children.
Welcome.
Thank you. WTA, thank you for that invitation. That is so well received. Thank you for that. And Terry and Dan, I know you guys will make it happen with our shortages, and thank you for that. The one negative thing I have to say is at that homecoming was our sound system out there needs some work, because I was sitting in the bleachers, couldn't understand a word that was being said. So that may be something we put on our to-do list. But otherwise, thank you. Thank everyone for their hard work here in our district.
I echo many of the same sentiments that the rest of the board has said. In addition to that, I spent a couple of hours talking with Principal Mike Kovig last week. We covered a lot of territory, but one of the things that Mike wanted to emphasize, and it's something that I personally don't do enough of, but it's certainly not something that's not on my mind a lot. And that is, we recognize, I should say, Mike Kovig was very clear about pointing out that we as a board and individuals throughout the district, we need to recognize the work that you teachers and staff, CSEA, WTA, all of you are doing on behalf of our students and our community. There's no question that we are in strange times, largely thanks to COVID, but and these times are putting a great deal more workload on you. And thanks to COVID, there are like teacher shortages and custodial shortages in so many other areas that we have difficulty filling positions right now. We will get through it. This time will pass. We'll hopefully be able to look back on it and say that we struggled through it, but we were successful. But more importantly, our success is going to be all on you. It's the people that are in the trenches that make the difference, not us up here that are dealing with policy and budgets. You guys are the ones that are actually doing the work. And I guess I cannot say loudly and strongly enough that your work is appreciated. Certainly at our level, even though sometimes it doesn't appear to be so, it truly is. And I wish there was a way I could make it more clear, but from a statement standpoint, I truly believe that you guys are doing awesome work with the least of resources. And if we could snap our fingers and fix these issues overnight, please believe that we would. We are working to try and fill those voids. And if you have people that you can reach out to help us fill those voids, please do so. If you have ideas that will help us bridge these gaps, please make those ideas known. But understand that we are all in support of everything that you're doing to provide an educational opportunity for our children. Thank you. Next item on the list, we have public comments.
No.
Superintendent, I'm sorry. Thank you.
All right,
My glasses.
Diane, if you want to take one and pass it, or if you've already got yours there. So we have completed our first round of testing for 1st through 8th grade, and we've got a portion of the high school, but I didn't have statistics on which classes, so I didn't want to present those as being the absolute. But this is a pretty good look at where we are in reading. We do have students displaying some significant needs for intervention as you look at this data. From 1st grade, where we have the average grade equivalent of 0.4, whereas we would expect about a 1.0 this time of year. And we've got 28% of students who are at benchmark, and then 13% who are on watch. And on watch in this program means students who are nearing grade level in most areas, but they may have some specific skills that need some remediation, but usually can be addressed through classroom instruction. We have intervention level and then urgent intervention. And so first grade, we have about 31% of our students are in that urgent intervention category. And that's the area that's really that they need intervention now because they're significantly behind. And so that's the column that really is going to keep me up nights for a long time here, because as we look down, that ranges from a low of about 30% in any given grade level up to a high of 49% of our students in that urgent intervention category. And so in talking with our principals at the different sites, at Brookside, we are working to make sure that we've got our intervention groups are now set, that we're getting the intervention time for each of those students that need that. They are basically leveling out the reading in the afternoons. So they're getting their core reading, and then they're getting an extra dose of tutoring on top of that. At Blosser, they're working toward that same goal. We get up to the middle school. It gets a little different there, that they are using their period 1 support and using AVID classes as well, and those strategies to support students and making sure that they have access to the actual strategies to improve their reading. And then as they move through each of their classes, all the core classes have key vocabulary that's explicitly taught, teaching those reading skills and as analysis as a part of the actual core class as well. So in social studies, you're getting that vocabulary, you're getting some of those reading skills, that sort of thing as well. They are using out of the AVID, it's called the We Core or Y Core model. It's writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. So it's this constant cycle within AVID of making sure that they're integrating all those parts into lessons as they move through. And in our English language arts, we're really encouraging reading for students where we have a 25-page minimum requirement for reading at home. We have reading logs, and in addition to their coursework that they're doing there as well. So we're trying to encourage all the way around. We do have our intervention teachers at Brookside and Blosser, as well as our reading coach. So we've got some positions that are supporting that as well, and we'll start to see some of those fruits. They've really been largely responsible for making sure this the assessment got done as well. So this is our baseline. We will be better than this, and we will see some improvements, or I won't have a job. Put it out that plainly.
Can I
So,
ask,
certainly.
you know, when the average grade level equivalent, okay,
Yes.
so those are a little lower than the grades that they're in. When you do the at above benchmark or the on watch or whatever other percentage, is that as if they were first grade level or as a 0.4 grade level?
No, that's our percentage at first grade
At
grade
first
level.
grade.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so
So-
these are just sort of the average of where they landed,
Yes.
but this is how they're doing in that.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, that's. I understand that really well.
I'm pleased that we have testing results because that gives us a baseline. It tells us where we are. It's not where we want to be, clearly, but it's important to have this information so that we can evaluate whether or not the interventions that we put in place are working.
Correct.
And as we develop interventions that work, then we'll be able to see that happening. And if that doesn't do the job, then we need to continue to reach out and find the appropriate interventions that make a difference.
And then one other thing, and I was looking at those percentages of students that need intervention or urgent intervention. And it's obvious when you have 75% with one group. The lowest was 50%, the lowest was 44%, but everything else was 50% or higher, all the way to 75%.
Mhm.
that's not, it's just not doable or sustainable to address 75% of your kids in intervention. Saying that, it's why there needs to be an emphasis to put in support and resources to that first tier intervention in the classroom.
Mhm.
It's so important that we give them all the support we can in that classroom, so that we're not so top heavy on the interventions.
Correct. And that's part of when we see our ESSER plan later on, there are some specific interventions in there that we think are going to lead to that, including hiring a PE teacher so that we have more preparation time, more support time for our kiddos. K-5, it's also got some behavioral aids, because part of the theory that we're working on with our middle schoolers is some of it's engagement. And so if we can get them more engaged and get behaviors that are appropriate, that they can engage, that we're really working toward building those academic skills at that point. Because we know from research that 6th, 7th grade level is where engagement really starts to wane a little bit, and the social becomes much, much more important. And that's some of what we're seeing right now with behaviors, I think, as well.
And unfortunately, also as they get older, if they don't see any reason for that test meaning anything to them, they don't try, they don't care,
Correct.
they just guess and go right on through. So you don't get real results. You don't have good data, because sometimes they just guess because they don't want to put in the effort.
Right.
And it goes along with the behavior.
It does.
obviously.
And this test has a unique factor to it now, in that now teachers can actually work with some students and set growth goals. And the next assessment will actually be able to take a look and say, you grew by this much, and start talking about specific areas of growth. That's where the power to this type of assessment comes in. The baseline is always just sort of, okay, that's where we're starting, but it doesn't really give us much about, oh, this student's making awesome growth, even if they're behind. So, hey, we can keep doing what we're doing, but this kiddo is not getting it. We need to do something different. And so
My assumption is this is not tied to a grade. Is that correct?
it is not tied to a grade. No.
So Superintendent Aldridge knows this, because I've had conversations with him about it, and I think a couple of administrators do too, because the articles I've sent, is that I'm wondering how much the lower scores are compounded by the amount of the intrusion of digital media into our lives. And I feel strongly that kids need a book in their hands, not a screen where they skim through pages on a screen. They really need a book. There is magic in holding a book that isn't on a screen, looking at words on a screen. And I've noticed lately that I get really excited when I see somebody reading a book. I had my granddaughter in the summer at the park, and 2 high school girls were sitting there on a bench reading books, actually reading books. And it turns out they had just bought books at the book juggler. And when I was at Claus for a Cause, the fundraiser for the Rotary fundraiser that was just held up at Ridgewood Ranch, there was a guy there, I can't remember what, he had something to do with band or something, I can't remember, but he was sitting there reading a book. And I went and talked to him, what are you reading? Tell me what you're reading, because it was fascinating to me to see this guy reading a book at this event. And when I go when my husband and I went up to Humboldt County to go camping in our trailer, I noticed when people were reading books, they're sitting outside reading a book, not skimming through a device. And I feel strongly that if we want the magic of reading to show up with kids, we need to put books in their hands. So that's my take.
And that was also heard in our ESSER meeting as well, that we have money for classroom libraries. That is a part of that, so that each teacher could have, I think the budget's about $500 per classroom, to actually go out and buy books that are physical books, number one, and address the just wide variety of levels. As you can see here, we've got kids at the top, we've got kids all the way across the spectrum with these, so that we can have books that engage them at multiple levels in the classroom. So that came from one of our teachers, and I thought that was an excellent idea as well.
Is that a part of the plan to have some of them be in Spanish as well as English?
Yes. And also work with, we were talking about the possibility of working with the book juggler to curate that a little bit and find good titles that are relevant to us rather than going out and buying a package of something that's going to be, we'll like some of them, but not others, that kind of thing. So
Does this data reflect our independent study kids and our special ed kids as well?
it reflects our special education students. It does not necessarily reflect our independent study students. We're still operationalizing that part of things. So our next round we'll have that information there. So, sorry, I'm not done. I know that was a lot in that one area. An update on the Brookside West Wing project. We got a budget back to replace what's existing there, and it was in the range of $3.5 million. That far exceeds the budget that we have available.
So what did we actually originally budget for the 2 million?
We were budgeting about, it was a little less than 2 million. Yeah. And I talked every which way, and there was just no way to get that with the grant money that we were relying on for part of it to work out, because you can't do portables, which was the only cheaper option that we had available. So
Hold on.
Yep.
We were budgeting 1.7 then? Is that what it was?
roughly, yes.
So if we put 1.7 in and we got a 50% grant for the balance,
Oh, no, I'm sorry. 1.7 was with the grant money. We have about $1 million left in the bond fund. And then currently, yes. And they would contribute about $700,000 under the grant. So 1.7 would be our operating budget with the grant.
on the other hand, if we opted for the $3.5 million gain, we would have to come up with 50% of that.
We would have to come up with all, well, the other 1.8 million would be the outstanding balance there. Because the grant program is fixed at that $700,000 level. It doesn't get any bigger if we spend more.
Gotcha.
It's not a matching grant or anything. It's a per pupil grant. So
I responded back to your email on that,
Mhm.
and one of my suggestions was to essentially borrow money from our reserve economic uncertainties and pay that back out of the next round of grant funding.
Mhm.
And my suggestion was to talk that over with Nikki and find out if that was a reasonable thing to do or not. Any thoughts?
I haven't been able to have that conversation with her yet. So I'll follow up with that and get back to you around that. And then also going back with talk to the architect and found something that would be within our scope. What could we get for that money? And so that was a plan that I had sent to you earlier today that included 2 classrooms and a bathroom, basically for about $1.2 million. And those would be modular built, so they're not portable classrooms going in. So
And those would still qualify for this.
correct. So it might actually extend our bond a little bit in that situation, that we would have a little bit of budget to do some other projects within the district.
Can we get by the two?
We can, perhaps until the next bond draw, where we might have to add one more on, depending on our TK numbers. That's sort of the unknown quantity out there right now, is what is our TK enrollment going to look like as that increases over the years.
I'm floored at the cost of these things. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we have to do the removal of the old building, and that's a significant portion of the cost there as well. Because that old building is,
1967.
yeah, and there's a good bit of material there that would have to be removed, that kind of thing. Then we have
And
to
level.
level it out a little bit. And so there's a lot of groundwork and things like that that have to be done. But then the actual building itself is still in the $700,000 range, I think. So they're expensive, and there's just not a lot of, we've looked around at other opportunities. You know, I know you had sent me a contract or a provider for the modular buildings. Looked at them. Our architect seems to think that would be more expensive in his experience, but certainly we would invite them to the table to put in a bid when we get to that point.
Well, I'm for trying to do whatever we have to do to maximize our return in terms of the grant. Clearly, and then the other option, of course, is we should whatever it takes to get us to where we need to be in terms of classroom space, we have to do.
Mhm.
And if that requires, if only 2 classrooms is simply not going to do it, then we need to determine how many classrooms we need and find a way to fund that.
Mhm.
Whether it's, again, borrowing short-term and paying it back through the grant, through the next draw on our bond funds.
Mhm.
Because the way I see it is we're 2 years out from issuing more bonds.
Right.
There's nothing to stop us from doing it sooner. But we told the community we were not going to do this until 2 years out. And I would like to hold to our promise.
Mhm.
But that also means that we need to find out whether or not we can weather that storm, if you will. We can make those take care of those financial obligations with reserves if necessary, and pay back those reserves through the bond. I know that is something that can be done, but I don't know if there are time limits involved.
Correct. Yeah. So we've got to look into those pieces and reach out to bond counsel probably around that as well. So. It was mentioned earlier about the plastic bags for lunches. Christy has researched some alternatives. We looked at paper bags. They were really prohibitively expensive. They were on the order of, I think, about 3 times as much per bag, which she's already was spending a decent amount there. So we actually looked at, there's some biodegradable plastic bags. So we're going to try that solution and see, and perhaps our class that is interested in that could actually take it and maybe do an experiment to see how long does it actually take to biodegrade. I've always wondered that as a part of this. But we really do appreciate our students being conscious of that and bringing that to our attention. So that's we'll try that solution. If that doesn't work, then we will go back to the drawing board and see about paper bags at that point. As you heard,
Do we know how much we actually spend on plastic bags as opposed to another alternative?
yes. So the plastic bags were going for about 14 cents a piece. So you figure about at the rate we were going through them, it was about $30 a day that we were spending. These biodegradable ones, we actually found, I think it's around 7 to 8 cents a piece. So cutting our cost in half on that while also getting a better product. So hopefully it'll work well and it'll be a good solution.
Did that include looking in with paper bags? Did they look into those little cardboard boxes too? The Blosser and Brookside used to use them for a number of years, and they seem to be. They were always.
I don't know what Christy looked at. I know that she was saying the cheapest paper alternative was that the paper bag, and she said it was a little less than 50 cents a bag, I think. So that was a lot.
I mean, what's that?
I'm wondering where she buys them, because there are government outlets for GSA, for example, and I know that the district can purchase through GSA, and then there's also the state has resources as well.
And so we're looking at some of those too to see if there are alternatives as well. We figured the biodegradable one is at least an experiment. We're only going to order like a case of them, try them out and see. She said that'll last her a few weeks to give it a good idea, and then we'll keep looking at it. So.
Okay.
The bathrooms here at Willits High, we have 2 sets of bathrooms back online that were not functional before. So we've got the portable ones back here by the stadium, and then we also opened up the science wing as well. So really appreciate the work with our maintenance staff to get those back up and running. They're functioning. We're getting kids into class on time, that kind of thing. I've already heard some positive comments that way. So we're also looking at, we will have some bathroom upgrades that are a part of our windows project because it's a DSA. You have to upgrade the bathrooms to the current standards. And so once we know the scope of that, Terry and I discussed the idea of if we need to look at additional upgrades to our other bathrooms, looking at that maybe as a separate contract where we could maybe contract with a plumber or something like that this summer to come in and just get some baseline done and make sure that all our bathrooms are functional and doing what we need for students at all sites. So we got word this week that our significant disproportionality review was found to be 100% compliant by the state. So congrats to Kelly Labus and her team for making it through that round very, very successfully. She did an excellent job there and an awesome review. Our leadership teams at each site are working, going through professional development through working with Doug Fisher through our CAPS network, the California Principals Network. And so that includes teacher leaders and admin at each of the sites. They're really coming around to increased implementation for professional learning communities. And the 3 questions to ask students if you do come into classrooms, and this is pretty consistent at our sites, are what are you learning? How are you learning it? And why are you learning it? So those are the 3 questions that we want to make sure that our students know how to answer from kindergarten all the way through so that they see the relevance to what they're doing. We know that's going to take some time to bring that culture around, but we have started to see some implementation of that and really see the teachers being explicit in making sure students can answer those 3 questions as they're moving through. Yes. What are you learning? How are you learning it? And why are you learning it? On our recruitment efforts, you'll start to hear some radio spots coming out very soon. So we put in the purchase order for that earlier this week. Should have about 2 weeks worth of coverage, I think, and they'll air 144 times on a couple of different radio stations in the area. We have put out things on Facebook, and as Tessa was saying, thank you to everyone who continues to forward that out and get it further out in their networks. And then we're also going old school and putting in a newspaper ad as well. So we're trying in every sphere that we can think of, and if there are other areas you can think of, please let us know. We'll get advertisements out there. Trina was even saying maybe at the movie theater, they have times before the movie or whatever where you can put up an ad or a little video or something. So so we talked about that. And I said, yeah, if we think we can get some interest, then let's do that. So we really are trying out there everywhere to aid the excellent folks that we've got on board and expand our staff to a full staff to do the jobs that we need to do. As far as COVID updates, we will have some testing and quarantine rules that'll have some modification soon. Students will test immediately after an exposure and then once between days 5 to 7 while on modified quarantine rather than doing this testing 3 or 4 times. So it should cut the testing by at least a third for students. We're finding that we're being pretty efficient whenever we have done it, that we're catching some cases at that immediate one, and we don't seem to really be having the spread. It doesn't go anywhere from there. So we're really happy about that. Our staff have done really an amazing job responding to the need for testing at each site. Everybody's just pulled together and said, hey, we need to go test. That Friday, we tested, I think, about 150 students between Brookside and Blosser that needed to get done Friday afternoon. And that was between, we decided to do that at 2 o'clock. And I think we had everybody tested by about 4:30, 5 o'clock then. So, so I really appreciate all the work that all our staff have been doing there all the way through. It's been every walk of life working together just to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our students safe. It's anticipated that the emergency use authorization will be granted for a vaccine for our 5 to 11-year-olds later this month. I think the hearing date is on October 26th. We are working with the Tuolumne County Health Department and local clinics to get word out about clinics. The feedback that we had was we don't think it's a good idea to have kids come to school and receive that without their parent being with them, without that type of support. The health department heard us, so they're talking about running the clinics from 3 in the afternoon till 6 on several nights in each of the communities so that parents can come and be there. Also, that a student doesn't get a vaccine and then sit through a day of school whenever we know this can kind of make you feel a little bad after having it or whatnot. So we're excited to continue to work with our partners on that. And I'll send out a survey about vaccine interest soon that parents should expect to see. No commitment there. If this is still an optional vaccine, and of course, this is the emergency use authorization. So want to make sure that parents don't get that confused with, I know there was a mandate that came out from the state that said once this is FDA approved, fully to use, then there would be some additional pieces that go into effect as far as mandates. We'll hear more about that as that comes along, but there's not a set timeline for that because we haven't seen that full use authorization just yet. We have been looking at different plans as we're getting closer to the rainy season as far as eating outside. We've ordered some carports that should be here. As we looked at the party tents, and they were the same price as a carport. And we said, but a carport, we could actually put a couple of bolts in and have it anchored so that it doesn't go tumbling, blowing across the campus, versus the tent. We've asked around, nobody's like, they're like, some of them are great and some of them fall apart, and it doesn't seem to matter the quality or where you get them from, that kind of thing. So we decided that we're going to try this concept. So we ordered 5 of them, and we're going to hopefully get them in early next week so that we can get them in at Brookside, try it out there. If that works, then we'll expand that out and order more of them. The company has assured me that they can get a pretty quick turnaround on this particular product because I guess people aren't buying cars right now. We have discussed some alternative plans with local physicians. At this point, everyone I've talked to still recommends that eating outside really does keep kids the safest and keeps them the least vulnerable to possible transmission. So we are hoping to continue that, and I know at Brookside they've ordered some additional tables. I know that there are some parents who are not happy with that decision, and I know it's not a clear-cut decision, but in this situation, I think that the benefit outweighs the risk there, and that we will have students outside for a very short period of time to eat during cold weather or something like that. It's not going to be sitting on the ground for 30 minutes or something like that, where we would have them out to eat, and then we'll move them to an appropriate area for recess or that kind of thing. So. And that is the end of my comments. Sorry, that was a little long tonight.
I do think significant rains are supposed to come next week.
They are. So we're coming up with some plan Cs around that as well, because we know that we won't have all these in. And so we're looking at that at each of the sites as well.
Thank you for that. We are at public comments. So a person wishing to be heard by the board shall first be recognized by the president, and shall then proceed to comment as briefly as subject permits. In general, individuals, speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item, and the board will limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. So anybody out there in the Zoom land that would like to address the board?
Could I? This is Dawn.
Hi,
Hi,
Don.
Don.
Hi, good evening. Besides the concern of filling a position of PE teachers, we really need yard duties because our paraprofessionals are spending more time being yard duties than they are in the classroom with students. And they can't be in there helping teaching reading if they're out there being yard duties. And because of COVID, we're trying to keep all the kids separated, and everything from just doing a simple brunch is 100 times more complicated, and you need more staff to get everything done. And I just would like you to consider that, some part-time people, or maybe even find some volunteers to try it out. But it would just, our CSEA paraprofessionals, they want to be in the classroom with the kids and not out there being yard duties. And that's what they love. And so anyways, I want to shout out to them because they really are amazing and we love them so much. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Cheryl.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
I want to thank you guys for separating the vaccines from school for the daytime school hours. I appreciate knowing that children will receive vaccines with their parents and that you guys looked out for their safety. And I appreciate that. So thank you.
Very welcome. Anybody else?
See, Kelly has her hand up, I believe.
Go ahead and call them out. Kelly, go ahead.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to follow up on Joe's comment that the state did tell us that we were clear on our part of our disproportionality. And I want to clarify that they reviewed the files of our students from the last year, and that we were super clean on, and I'm so proud of all of our staff. We're still waiting for approval for the plan that we worked on to reduce our number of kids with emotional disturbance. The state is still reviewing that, and that's pending, and I probably will spend time at a future board meeting because we've got some really exciting things in the works to really prevent students from needing to go to another program to get their behavioral and social emotional needs met. I just wanted to clarify that. So we're good on the way our files looked for kids with those disabilities, but we're still waiting on the state to say that the plan that we wrote together as a team has been approved. So just a clarification.
Thank you. Morgan. So is there anybody else out there?
Hi, I'm unmuted. This is Morgan Shook, the RSP teacher at Brookside. I wanted to thank Joe and maintenance and everyone for all that you guys have been doing. My comment and question is in regards to lunch at Brookside, because seeing the kids sitting out on the pavement every day breaks my heart. A lot of them don't even have shoes that fit or bring jackets. And the idea of having them set out in carports doesn't seem very feasible. And I understand that the numbers show that eating outside is better, but we have the capacity to open up and vent our cafeteria. If we open up the transoms, all the doors, and get heaters in there, we would be able to keep adequate ventilation, as well as even possibly putting in plastic barriers. And that would also save up a lot of time for maintenance so that they wouldn't have to be putting up carports. And, it's going to get cold, it's going to get windy, and we don't want the kids getting sick from sitting outside in the rain. So I really would encourage the board to look at other options, because the parents don't want to see their kids outside like refugees. So we need to really be able to use the cafeteria, because that would be the easiest and most effective use of space. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Who was next?
Brian.
Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. And I see Sandy Lucier is also waiting there. So thank you for letting me have a moment here. First, I want to say thank you to all the board members. I heard every single one of you praise our staff across the district, and that sounds fantastic to me. And I want to reiterate that invitation. And the goal again is to reunite all of us to be a Willits Unified School District family. And so I really hope that everybody takes us up on that offer and eats some tri-tip, and we'll of course have vegetarian options as well, and likely some ice cream. So thank you for recognizing that. And I really wanted to emphasize how much we all rely on each other. And we're short-staffed across the entire district. I teach at the high school. I'm a woodshop teacher at the high school. We have a new custodian, Gustavo, who's done a phenomenal job coming on. Miguel has done just impeccable work since I met him, which was 15 years ago. And our staff at the office is just, they all are wearing capes. And they do everything that they normally do during the day, but then they also are coming out and testing all the kids, interacting with all the kids, dealing with the mask wearing, and it's an infinite amount of energy that's coming out from our friends at CSEA. And I wanted to really say thank you to all the support that they've given us as teachers. We absolutely would not be surviving without that support from administration down. So thank you. And we are in a hard time right now. Everybody knows this. And it is as a negotiator and a WTA VP, I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Aldridge. We're working on building better bridges and increasing our collaboration between the teachers and the administration, and trying to get through some of these solutions. We want to be more solutions-based rather than complaint-based. And we wanted to make a point at letting the board know this and reiterate and reach out to our administration to let them know that we are interested in helping bridge the gap and solve some of these problems that are monumental. I don't expect any one person to have the answers, but as a group, we can come out of this hole. And I heard Dan say that as well. So I want to reiterate what Dan said and thank him for that. We will come out of the other side of it, but we need to work together to do it. So thank you, everybody who's here. And let's keep on plugging. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thanks, Brian. You still have 9 seconds. Let's see, Sandra Lucier.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Sandy Lucier. I teach at Brookside and I have 2 children in the district. And I'm really trying hard to find a PE solution. And as you've heard, Brookside, we haven't had a single day of PE yet with our PE teacher. We have a schedule set we have since day 1, but we can't put our assistants in those slots and our PE teacher because we're waiting on one more classified employee to get cleared, and then we hopefully can do it. But then, as you know, another one is out and someone calls in sick and the PE teacher is always pulled, I'm afraid, going to be pulled from that spot. Now at Brookside, it's not really a prep time issue. We do have our 30-minute prep time, but it becomes an intervention issue because you saw the scores were passed out today, and we were to use the PE block to do intervention for some of those other kids that are not getting intervention with the red group, but we have the yellow kids and all the other kids that we need to give intervention to. So that is an issue. Now, and I don't have a great solution because I know every profession, it seems right now, is short-staffed. But if I'm going to be the PE teacher every day to get in those 200 minutes every 10 days, I would please like to have some training to help me, because I'm really working hard to find PE games every day and I'm really getting out of ideas. So if I could please get some training for PE that would help teachers a lot. And I know in the past, last year or the year before, we had a certificated PE teacher and we had 2 classified PE teachers at Brookside, and then that was cut. And now we got back 1 classified PE teacher. So maybe we can look into that, as another idea. I know we heard PLCs were mentioned, professional learning communities, and that was a focus in the past in our district for many, many years. We did those, and now it's coming back, and I'm really excited to start PLCs. But because we are short-staffed, we couldn't have PLC this week at Brookside or Blosser because we don't have the staff for us to meet during that school day. So it's just, we know it's affecting everyone. But yeah, so if I could get PE training, and again, just thank you everyone for everything you're doing. I know we are all leaning on each other for support, and I just wanted to say that. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne Matheson.
Thank you. I'm Suzanne Matheson, and I am speaking now to thank you for the incredible job that you have done, teachers, every district, all of the personnel, and the board and the superintendent, to keep students so safe from COVID. It has been an extraordinary job. I know you've worked incredibly hard at it. And one piece is something that Morgan brought up that I'm going to urge you to continue. It is extremely important that students do not eat in the cafeteria. It will make it a restaurant situation. You'll be mixing classes of students, cohorts of students without their masks on. I'm very much in favor of the solution of finding the carports, other closed ways for them to eat, not as refugees, but as wonderful, healthy students who are going to continue to stay healthy because they are not breathing on each other and eating excitedly with their masks off. At Site Council, we talked about using some of the COVID money because as a former teacher, I know there are kids who just don't have coats, or there are kids who forget their coats. Coats is something you can fix. Let's buy some extra coats for each classroom that can stay in the class so that students can go out and be warm. I would much rather have students be a little bit chilly. Let's get them a coat, but do not begin to mix our students in the cafeteria. We will undo all of the extraordinary work we've done for the past 18 months to keep our students back at school and not get COVID. So please consider and continue to work on finding ways to have students not mix and eat in the cafeteria. Thank you.
We are at Donna Vargas.
To add to her note, actually, the carpets that the kids are eating on, a lot of them, I mean, they don't eat on the same carpet every day. So over at Blosser, it is nice that they're not sitting directly on the cement anymore or in the grass, but it does, I mean, some kids, they take off their mask, they do wipe, you know, so that can cause, they do have bacteria on them. But the one thing I did want to ask is if there's going to be, if you guys have thought of any more help for mental health for children in our district. After COVID, there was a lot of issues with that, not just in my household, but in others as well. And I know that there's just only one school psychologist. So the counselors are quite, they are doing a great job, but they have a lot on their plate. So I was just gonna bring that up. Kids are going through a lot, as you know.
Amy?
Hi, thank you all. I just wanted to ask that you consider hiring for a PE position so that both schools get PE for at least 4 days a week. Pre-COVID, they were active outside or in the cafeteria if it's raining for 30 minutes, or even in their own classrooms for 30 minutes a day, at least 4 days a week, which was a state requirement. And since COVID, there's really no requirement that I know of unless it's come back. And I think for their mental health, they need it. And since we do not have enough PE teachers, it has also created, I guess, prep issues of finding time for prep. And as for Blosser, for sure, and I know, I don't know exactly about Brookside, but we have now lost our aides in the classrooms because they're doing yard duty, as like what Dawn said. And I think it's because of the PE issue. So if I'm just encouraging to try to hire or at least post a position to find another PE teacher like we had prior to COVID. I just think for mental health and for our scheduling issues, as well as our reading needs in the classroom with our you know, the scores that Mr. Aldrich was talking about, we really need more ratios, teacher to student ratio. And we've lost that in the last couple weeks due to prep issues. And we no longer have an aide during the time that is the most crucial. So I just wanted to let you all know. Thank you.
There we go. Diane Heath.
Hi, I just wanted to thank Tessa and Dawn and Amy for fighting for us to be back in the classroom and working with the children. Right now I have on my schedule a 6-hour day and I work in the class, all 3 classroom for a total of 1 hour and 45 minutes. So the rest is, you know, done with yard duty, lunch service and things like that. And it's hard, like I've told the teachers, it's hard to go home at night and all you hear are the kids going, "Why are you leaving me? I need your help." It's hard. I just feel like I'm abandoning them. And yeah, I just wanted to let you know that we really use the help. So I wanted to thank the teachers for supporting that and getting us back in the classroom. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board? Paul?
Yeah, this is a letter written by Miguel, and I'm only going to read about half of it now because everything has already been said. He is very concerned at the high school level, especially about the loss of custodians. Okay, so you all know about everything else that's gone wrong with custodians and bathrooms and places to eat, etc. He says that at the high school, he has lost 1 3/4 custodial positions, which is the equivalent to 10 to 14 hours a day. And that means 3/4 of a position at night, 1 full-time position in the day. Currently, except for Sanhedrin, all the other schools have similar problems. He'd be very happy if the board would either show up to fill in the slack or to discuss specifics or in generals with him. In particular, football games, Pee-wee custodial time, temporary or long-term solutions, and what's happening to morale and why. He hopes that when he sends a letter next month, it'll be to say thank you instead of having to have this ready.
Thank you, Miguel.
You're welcome, he says.
No. Anybody else like to address the board? Hearing none, we'll close the period for public comment and move on. We're at consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Yes, where are William quarterly reports? I know where they are. I meant the form to fill out to place a complaint about one of the 4 things on there.
They would be in the district office.
In the district office? Okay, I thought it was school offices and it doesn't seem to.
School offices should have at least the form that says go to the district office to pick up.
Okay. There you go. All right, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Superintendent Aldridge was very kind to meet with me the other day. I am struggling to trying to understand how much of our curriculum is digital and how much of it is hard copy. And I realized that even though I'm fairly computer illiterate, is that when I see that we're approving textbooks, then I'm thinking of textbooks as a book. And I realized that a lot of what is used in the district now is digital materials, digital curriculum. And so I'm making a concerted effort to understand how kids are being taught, how much of their day is on devices, how much is hard copy curriculum, and whether if we purchase hard copy curriculum, if we're using it, or if we're just using the digital materials, or if we're buying digital materials and not making use of that either. I'm trying to understand. So I'm hoping that the administrators at each site will maybe communicate to the board as to how digital versus hard copy curriculum is used at their school sites. I would appreciate that a lot. I'd really like to understand that. Thank you.
Is that something we could get a presentation on at a subsequent board meeting?
Yes, I believe we could.
And then the other part with respect to the Williams, one aspect is whether or not we have sufficiency of textbooks and the materials. The other one is facilities.
Yeah.
And they have
There's a
different kinds.
couple of.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Paula is also on our website.
Okay, well, that's a little more challenging than to drop by your office and pick up a
It's
paper.
available for one.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I look at the computer last and try to avoid it.
So
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I understood there were 4 things. I don't remember the other 2, but when the Williams reports come out, they, but there's one tonight. And all 4 of them are on there and they happen quarterly. So anything that happens between tomorrow and the next 3 months or whatever it is,
of course, yes.
it'd all come up for one of the future board meetings, right? Or it
Correct.
hopefully we got it. So, okay. I thought you meant when you said they're separate, that it meant, no, this is the month
Well,
for this. And this is, oh,
Yeah, well, in terms of the one you're talking about with respect
Mhm.
to the
Facilities.
well, facilities, I believe that's a once a year
That
process.
someone inspects?
Yes,
Oh,
and
okay.
often the county comes to part of that.
Yeah, I understood the county did it. Oh, okay.
And then they just come around to do that. So.
Okay, they don't just come when you call, they only come on a specific time once a year?
They surprise you.
Yeah, it has to be completed once a year annually.
Oh, okay.
And then we go back and follow up on our site to do the same form
Uh-huh.
at each site, because the county doesn't necessarily go to every site. They only go to Williams sites.
Okay,
And all that's changing in the law, how they're identifying Williams schools as well. So there'll be more about that later on.
okay.
So.
Well, we'll work on patience for people. Well, it's like I wrote you, I didn't know, what's step 2, and some people were pretty adamant, but since it's been so discussed, I didn't bring it up, but it's kind of a big deal. And there's conflicting news is what I'm concerned about, that, yes, it's been repaired, and then you go there and no, door's locked, we can't get in, and it's, I don't know why that is. It's not disrepaired, I don't know. But okay, thank you. Thank you.
We are at item C, approval of resolution 2021/22-3, sufficiency of textbooks.
And we said that's the one we're moving till after item K because of the public hearing requirement for that.
Gotcha. So should we just jump to item K and do the public hearing?
We absolutely could.
So let's get that out of the way. That gets us to the point where we can deal with item C in the time comes. So at 5:15 a.m. We're going to move that a little bit later. It's
6:20.
6:26. We'll open the public hearing for sufficiency of textbooks. Education Code 60119 requires that in order to be eligible for certain state funding for textbooks, the governing board shall adopt on an annual basis a resolution with respect to textbooks and instructional materials availability, and affirm that each pupil in each school in the district has or will have sufficient textbooks or instructional materials or both in each subject that are consistent with the contents and cycles of the curriculum framework adopted by the state board. The board welcomes public input. So if anybody has any input with respect to essentially our approval of resolution 2021/22-3, our sufficiency of textbooks. And I can say that there's clearly this has to do with whether or not the textbooks are quote unquote sufficient in each of the core disciplines in each of the various grades. But I was going to throw a couple of quick questions out there.
Certainly. I'll do my best to answer.
I was going through and looking at essentially the report here tells us this resolution says essentially 100% of students have textbooks that are consistent with the cycles and content of the curriculum frameworks. Let's see if I can find one that's probably Sanhedrin High School social studies as an example. We have textbooks dating back to 1999 edition, 2001, 2005, 2005. In the other areas in here, we are looking at textbooks with 2017 edition, 2018, even some as late as 2020. Yeah, there's I would argue that books that 2001,
Right.
it just doesn't seem like that's appropriate today,
Mhm.
at least in my mind. I would argue that there has to be a world history book that has that shows that you know, when the boundaries of Russia have changed.
Right. And so I know Marion and I have discussed that as a part of, we're going through the WASC accreditation process there this year. So exploring some new curriculum that is more supportive of more recent events and that, because we both have noticed that. I mean, some of those textbooks were the same ones I was using when I was there 10 years ago. And so that is definitely a focus of what we would like to do, is to get some updated curriculum there. It's hard to find the non-traditional curriculum that's required for Sanhedrin around some things, just because if the traditional curriculum were to address the students' needs, it would have worked probably before they got to Sanhedrin. So we're having to look at what's another way we can look at the same subject area, same topic, and have a presentation that's engaging for the students. And so
I just threw Sanhedrin out because it was the most glaring of them.
absolutely, it's the one that's risen to the top as the highest need, I think.
But if I look through, I mean, there's still in virtually every school, virtually every discipline, there seems to be stuff dating back to 2005, 2006. You know, stuff that's 15 years old. I would think that there's got to be something that's more current in almost every one of those avenues. And I would hope, you know, one of the things that we should be doing, I would think, is trying to stay as relevant and current as we can in all of the curriculum that we provide to the students. So, and I don't know what this, I thought we were on kind of a cycle that was like a 6-year cycle or something like that.
We were to a certain point, and then when we hit the 2009 to ran out of money, the state suspended all of those adoption cycles, and then they only brought them back for certain areas and certain grade levels. So high school is still whatever the board adopts kind of thing. There's not really a set. The state doesn't adopt curricula there necessarily. They recommend, but they don't go through the process that they used to at that level. For the K-8, they now have lists of things that you can move from, but you're not required to adopt off the new cycle, that kind of thing. So we will.
I would rather make decisions not based on whether we're required to do it, but
certainly
based on whether or not it's the right thing to do.
Certainly.
So if the state is telling us that we don't have to do it, I could understand us falling back on that position if we simply cannot afford it. On the other hand, if we have resources to keep us updated, this board member would like to keep us updated.
I'll move forward with the administration in that direction.
And I have a question, Jeannie, are you talking about these being digital books and not just physical?
That's part of my question.
Oh,
is to
okay.
whether when we're talking about students have textbooks, are they books or are they digital materials that represent textbooks? And how much of the curriculum is actually digital curriculum that we're using and how much is actually hard copy books? And is that what we're looking at here with the sufficiency or insufficiency of instructional materials? Are we looking how much is digital and how much is hard copy? And I also, since we adopt textbooks, do we also adopt digital curriculum that is being used by the schools? I noticed elementary schools have adopted Second Step as an SEL curriculum, but that never went to the board for adoption. And maybe that's outside of what we're responsible for, but it seems to me that the board should know what's being taught in the schools. And we should be exposed to what digital curriculum is being used in the schools. So that because that's our responsibility, is to be aware of what's going on in the schools.
So wasn't that what Chromebooks and things were about, is getting
Yeah.
whatever was in hard copy on that, so you could
Yes.
be Okay, and that's what I figured. So if you had a Chromebook, then you had everything that the school would have.
For the
And-
most part, and most of our
For the most
digital
of it.
curriculum mirrors the textbook. It may have some more interactive features or whatnot, but it's still going to be the same core of what that textbook is presenting. It just has all the teacher's guide kind of linked in, all those materials that would have been a different workbook in past editions. Now it's all kind of linked.
Plus there's links to additional information, like videos.
Right,
Yes,
don't they
yeah.
update and stuff with, I mean, wasn't that part of the plan of
Right.
those that you could update? So that if it's something that's hard copy from 2003 and the kid's using a Chromebook, chances are it won't be that bad. I mean, because wouldn't they have a,
The ones from 2003, I'm not defending. I think are
no, I'm sorry. There's
are absolutely
2001s
they're
too.
the ones that far back don't necessarily have a viable digital component
okay,
to it. So
okay.
that's what we need to look at, is to update those into something that is keeping with more where we are, bring that forward to the board and move forward.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Part of my question is that when we adopt textbooks, are we buying textbooks?
Right, or just,
Or are we buying digital curriculum? If we're buying textbooks and digital curriculum, are the textbooks being used, the hard copy books, or are we wasting our money on buying hard copy books that are not being used? I don't know, and I'd like to understand so that I really understand actually what we're buying. If you look at the warrants, I mean, a tremendous amount of money goes out to digital materials,
Yeah.
and digital this, and digital that, and I actually circle them, and it's a huge amount of money.
Right.
And I'd just like to know what we're doing here. So,
Yeah, no, I
in
just-
this day and age. So.
yeah, well, I just understood from years ago that the reason things were being switched to digital was because they could be updated and this and that a whole lot less expensively. And that hard copies were mostly because you come to school and you often need a book and so-and-so forgets theirs at home, or this one's not working today, or whatever was the issue. And so they were only gonna buy one set per class instead of, one set per class and a bunch for all the kids who have to use it at their houses as well. And it was a big deal because there was a lot of fuss about backpacks and how heavy they were and lockers and, ad nauseum, but.
So you don't have to, unless you left it in your locker here, at least you could go online and get it.
Yeah,
Right, I
but it's
understand
good
that,
to
but
know.
I'm just.
I know that when we do purchase a digital book, we do purchase a set of physical books for that same material that lives in the classroom and doesn't go home. The students have that digital book on their Chromebook, and that's what goes back and forth to Chromebook. To what extent the physical books are being used in classrooms today as opposed to the digital versions, I don't know.
I would have to ask the principals at that point.
And there were other reasons for the digital media also, because the world has gone digital. And part of the idea was that going to the Chromebooks or similar types of devices that gives kids not only the access to the book, obviously digitally, but also gives them training in how to use these digital devices, because their lives are going to be impacted by these digital devices. I agree. We should have a better handle on what's being taught, how it's being taught.
Another problem I have with digital curriculum is that it can be updated and links put into it that we have no idea what they are or where they're taking our kids. I don't know.
Those are concerns that are very obvious.
I mean, I don't know if any of the rest of you have asked to watch the sex ed curriculum that's being taught at the road. It's digital, and we should know what's being taught, and there's all these links that take the kids to other places in regards to the sex ed curriculum. So we need to know what our kids are being exposed to, and so anyway.
Okay. Any further discussion on the sufficiency of textbooks? Is there anybody in the Zoom world interested in commenting on the public hearing on sufficiency of textbooks? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 6:39. And we can move back to item C now, and approval of resolution 2021-22-3, the textbooks. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve item C, approval of resolution 2021-22, sufficiency of textbook.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further board discussion? Hearing none, it's a resolution, will be a roll call vote. Diane?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Robert? Aye. And myself, aye. And we are at approval of the ESSER 3 plan.
All right. So just a real quick summary. I know you've all had a chance to take a look over that. The ESSER 3 money is, this spending plan is covering some expenses that will run between this school year all the way out to the 23-24 school year. So some of the expenses were existing and were covered in other plans, like our ELO plan that we did in the spring, our ESSER 2 that we didn't have to do a plan for, but was approved as a part of the budget. And then we have the ESSER 3 funding. So they kind of hit some different pots. The other piece with ESSER 3, we have been told that there is about another $1 million in funding that we may receive through ESSER 3, but they don't have the authority to give that to us yet for whatever through the state coffers. So we're expecting to see that authority come down with the approval of the new federal budget whenever that happens from Washington. So when that happens, we will come back and look at what other needs that we may have, thinking about like the Brookside project. That might be something that we could look at that point as well.
On a similar subject, but we can pull it off. Didn't the state just approve 123 point something billion? The state budget?
Yes. So, and they're anticipating that might actually go up because the receipts are going up on the tax side of things as well. So
do we anticipate significant or any additional revenues?
We have had a few additional revenues, but we had already kind of incorporated those into the revision that we did in August because we were aware of most of what those were going to be. The ESSER money is actually flowing from the federal government, so that's sort of the catch there. We had
The
our
only,
public-
sorry, Joe, I was just going to say the only other revision we would expect is that when we do our first interim update for the LCFF funding, we will be having a much better idea of our enrollment and ADA projections for the year.
So anyway, we had our public input meeting for the ESSER 3 plan on October 4th. That was by Zoom. We were able to incorporate much of that feedback from the attendees into the plan. Some of the things that we're looking at are completing the windows project for Brookside, Bechtel, and the high school. Looking at outdoor structures to provide students with some additional cover. We're continuing to fund for the 23-24 school year existing academic supports. And so those are the intervention teachers that we have, the coaches, that kind of thing. We built that budget in for an additional year. We're looking at having some money for, this is a new item for extended learning opportunities. So looking at some opportunities before and after school, if we can find staff that are willing to want to come in and do some before school tutoring. We've heard some feedback from parents that it would be very helpful at certain sites to have, particularly at Brookside. They don't open to receive parents until about 7:50 or so. And so that's hard for some parents that need to get to work. So we're looking at that as the possibility of having some additional learning time that we could have in that morning time before school. Kind of get a little innovative to see if we're shifting around a little bit, if we can hit different populations of kiddos. Because the other issue that we hear is around transportation in the evenings is a problem to come pick up kiddos if they can't catch the bus. So if mom could drop off on the way to work or dad could drop off on the way to work and they get some extra tutoring time and kind of get ramped up into learning for the day, we think that would be pretty effective. We're looking we are continuing to fund our existing EL family liaisons. We are looking at an elementary therapist, and this is, we'll be looking at the job description later this evening. That position is meant to function very much like a social worker. We just didn't want to go so far as to say an LCSW because we don't really have the funds to pay what a master's level would require there, so we're looking at a therapist position, which is similar types of qualifications, but not quite getting to that LCSW. And
we contract out for that?
we contracted out for some work with an MFT, yes. It's just not enough to meet the needs of the kiddos that we have. Oh, yes.
Well, so the salary schedule that shows on this for that person. Okay, the top one is the one for the 6-year and the master's degree and all the letters. Okay, that one is not the one where this district is looking to hire?
No, it's the one.
It's the one below.
Below the therapist.
And the reason it's up there is because you just wanted to show the differences between.
It's just the same salary schedule as far as from like the actual piece of paper.
We'll hit that a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll get there. I'll explain that one a little better once you get there. Sorry.
So I have a question. So how much does the district involve parents? I mean, we're talking about students receiving mental health services. So
This position would be to bridge with the parents, and it's probably this position would spend almost as much time with the parents as with students. It's meant to be an engagement, bringing those parents in and making sure that they're getting the support they need to support their child at home and make sure that we're able to support at school with the information we need.
Supplying kids with mental health services or counseling services, parents have to give their okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All this would involve parents 100%.
Okay, I noticed one of the things in here is that the district will administer a universal screener for social, emotional, and behavioral factors.
Right. So that is more for, it's a checklist that the teacher would complete on students to kind of say, hey, these 5 students in my class may be a little higher risk in it at more of a need for some of those intervention type services. We need to kind of get the ball rolling there and reach out to those parents, get consent, start working with them around these things.
So do parents get to consent that their kids have the screening? It's a mental health screening.
We can certainly send that out. Yes. They're pretty generic questions around things. So it's not meant to dive deep into things. It's just meant to say, this kiddo is having a little bit harder time with normal day-to-day classroom kind of things. Maybe we want to look a little closer here. So.
Can I chime in, Joe, just because a part of this position would be responsible for our early intervention plan that we've got. And the screening, Jeannie, it's a universal screening, just in the same way that we screen all kids for reading problems using our Renaissance and our STAR testing. It's that at the, couple of times a year, the teachers just say, these kids have these particular needs. And so it's something we're doing for every single kid at the school, and a universal screener isn't like a full assessment. It's just these rise to the top. And then at that point, the kids that rise to the levels of concerns, that's when we're doing the outreach and getting parent permission to work more specifically with the kids. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. We're also looking at, in this plan, having some behavioral aid support. And the purpose there would be that they would work probably with Kelly to really get some specific training on how to support a student in the class of really trying to keep them in class, keep them engaged, rather than waiting until they've had that moment that they're now having to have administrative intervention or whatnot. So working on, if we need to develop a behavior plan, how to help implement that, because a teacher who's already got everything else going on in the world, you say, hey, here's this behavior plan that requires you to, check in with the student every 5 minutes. That's putting an undue burden, so that we can support teachers in that regard as well, in making some of those behavioral improvements. Continuing our paraprofessional support that we have in our other plans, the Mendocino County Youth Project support, continuing that as well. We put in some significant monies for professional development for teachers and staff in social emotional learning and academic areas. There was a suggestion that Jeannie made actually around having some supports come in around how to get kids up, moving, engaged, talking to each other, doing more collaborative kind of things instead of computer-based anything like that. So kind of really focusing in on how to get them really in that more engaged socially mode that we really need for our kiddos. We are continuing to fund our different software purchases that we've had. There's a new item in here, as I mentioned earlier, for TK through 5 classrooms to have classroom libraries. And so we set aside $20,000 for that. There is an idea for a teen or youth drop-in center. And so we put in some money for that to see if that comes to fruition. I'm working currently right now with the Rotary Club, who's interested in providing some support for that. Working with some folks from County Behavioral Health who are interested in providing some support there. So we may have a kind of a cool little program that we could just have kids that, hey, I need somebody to talk to today, or I need somebody to talk to every day. And they stop in and drop in for that. So continuing our work with Nuestra Alianza. So helping to fund the summer program that they do such an excellent job with. Continuing the site leadership professional development. Looking at a new PE teacher for kindergarten through 5th grade. And then looking at a new technology support position, because we've added so much technology on at this point that our 2 techs and Jen are really trying to provide great customer service around some of the software that we have, but really we're working so hard on the hardware and keeping the infrastructure in place that we don't really get the time to go in and support and really fully use some of the software that we're paying for. And so really the focus of this position would be to free up some of Jen's time so that she as the director can go say, hey, did you know we can look at this data this many different ways and really support the teachers in that, so that they're not having to become experts in star reading or all the different products that we have out there, that Jen can take the time to do that. So
She can take the time like to do a little in-service on a Tuesday or whatever. that
correct,
time.
rather than having to always
Drop by and
go
check.
put out fires and try to get everything right. So
Can I ask one more question? This has to do with, you know, how the money is supposed to be spent and things like that. I know that I've pushed for the things on page 11 of 14 about 900 times, and I'm gonna keep it up, but nonetheless, what kinds of things have we done? Are there any that are kind of off the top of your head, since I didn't really notice them, that would be helping the underserved students?
you know,
Besides low income, and you know, that's a given.
sure. And the priority of all of these would be our underserved students. Like they are the top focus of all of these actions.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of what I figured, but
Yes.
do you have any like a concrete idea that you can sort of explain as an example? You know, like besides a summer school program for kids or a, you know, I mean, are you thinking that homeless students might be the ones who'd come after school and be interested in talking to somebody?
right. Or
is that what?
a student who's at risk in that regard would have that drop-in center that would be there to support them. For say like our English learners, looking at the family liaison, the elementary therapist, that kind of thing, to make sure that the parents are understanding and bought into what's going on at the school, and making sure that there's those connections that exist.
As like a priority for services, or just this is the program and they may or may not need it?
No, as a priority. I mean, really looking at all of our students and making sure the more risk factors they have on them, the more we know they need multiple layers of intervention. And so that's really what we're trying to look at, is how can we wrap around the students that really need that whole child support and whole family support? How can we do that regardless of what the other mitigating factors are for?
Oh, okay, and the 2 liaisons are still here? They
Yes.
still work?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Doing a wonderful job.
Good.
So-
I just heard gossip that one left, and I just wanted
Nope.
to know if that
We
was
still have
true.
both of them.
Oh, okay, good. No, okay. All right. So when we get to the therapist, that'll be the time we'll talk a little more about some of that stuff.
The job description.
Okay.
So approval of the ESSER plan, we have a motion to approve.
I approve the ESSER plan.
Diane's made the motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there any further board discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're at item E, approval of job description and salary schedule for a media center aide.
All right. So we have a need to support the media center at the high school, as our librarian here is currently serving our independent study program for about 60% of her position. And so we're looking at the media center tech, or the media center aide rather. Sorry, I think tech used to be the title there on that position. We updated the job description, worked with CSEA for placement and that kind of thing. And so bringing this forward for your approval tonight so that we can get that position advertised.
So I have questions. Did you think I wouldn't?
Let's get a motion and a second.
Oh, and then the question.
So is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, and is there a second?
I second.
Okay, the motion and second. Paula, you have questions?
I do. I'd like to know kind of, well, a number of things. I see that it's a part-time position, so they're not required to accept insurance benefits. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, even though it's 25 and not 24 hours.
Yes, it's
Oh,
they're
okay.
they have the option at 25 hours. It's not required until they get to 85%, which I think is,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a few hours. Oh, okay, and then my other question is how you come by, how the range was, I don't know why it's range 8 and not some other range, is what I'm saying, and
So the range I suggested with range 8 was around, that's where the elementary librarians were as well. And so there are times where this position will be supervising students who are in because the librarian here is not available for that. So they have, in my opinion, it was roughly similar duties, and that's why it was in the same range.
Okay, so when the time comes, if it comes, that the district negotiates with CSEA and things about the salary schedule and a variety of other issues in their contract come up, is that the time when it would be appropriate to suggest changes in ranges or?
Yes, that would be through negotiations at that point.
Oh, okay, that happens then? Oh, okay.
Yes.
That was my other. Okay, I didn't know if it was based on responsibility or hours or whatever comes up, but similarities.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to the job classifications, I would hope that at some point during negotiations, both parties take a close look at what competitive what competitive compensation ranges are appropriate for every single classification.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And on some sort of a rubric or something in which they're based on. So it's not just an arbitrary, I like this one to say 9 and I'd like that one to say 3, but more of a, if you're a 3, these are your more or less responsibilities, your more or less education level, your more or less whatever. So that it's just a little less.
That's more, you're speaking more to do with qualifications. I'm speaking more in terms of, we can use a custodial position as a simple example. 20 years ago, custodians made X. Along the way, we have been, every few years, they get a 3% raise along with everybody else in CSEA, and then another 3% raise and another 1%. Over the years, that all adds up to whatever. But at some point, somewhere along the way, either we fell way behind or we got way ahead of what was competitive in the workplace. So my argument here is that at some point, someone needs to look at each job classification and see if we are overpaying, underpaying, or paying a reasonable amount for that job classification based on what's being done around us.
Yeah, and that's called a reclassification study.
Yes.
And so we can certainly look at that as a part of negotiations. That's frequently, when it's been a while, that gets negotiated in generally. And was actually, I believe, a part of our last contract, but unfortunately COVID sort of made that all fall apart.
And,
So
and like classically, right now, we are struggling to find custodial staff at the prices that we're willing to pay. That's under our contract. It's possible that we have fallen far enough behind in what we are willing to pay based on our contract that we need to take a close look at that and other classifications in these various positions and determine whether or not we are still being reasonably competitive in the workplace for those positions.
Well, we all know, I think, and all remember that when wages changed because of the state's mandates, it misskewed whatever the salary schedule looked like. And then there were a number of years where in the past, we always, if you got 2%, it's 2% for everyone. And there were a number of years within the last 5 or 6 that a number of times during the last 5 or 6 years, where a particular group would pull an increase and another group would not, a particular department within the CSEA structure. So I really think it could be reclassification or it could just be fixing old mistakes.
Yes.
And
I don't think that that was a mistake, Paula. We had a situation where at the state level, the minimum wage increased by 100%. And I don't think when it came time to negotiate the whole salary schedule, that it was feasible to increase every position on the salary schedule by 100%. So it did change some positions in relation to each other as compared to how they had been prior to that. That was sort of the origin, the reason that that change occurred.
right, the understanding I received was that there just were no funds from the state to cover those additional 100% increases, to keep the ratio the same.
Well, there were no funds from the
For
state.
even
Right.
15, I know,
Yeah.
I know.
It was
It was just a mandate.
It was just a mandate. No, and I'm not arguing that the minimum pay shouldn't have been that and or more,
Oh, no,
but
it's just how it
But they-
stayed uneven.
yeah, it put us in a position, it put all school districts in a position that was simply not very tenable. That said, it's been a couple of years now since that went into play. Things have normalized, if you will.
Uh-huh.
Now it's time to look at those positions and determine whether or not we are still whether or not we're paying the right amount for those positions. So, and I'm hoping that that's one of the things that comes out of our next round of negotiations with CSEA.
Okay. I guess.
And it still boils down to this, if we're not paying enough, we need to figure out what we need to pay
Right,
and do the right thing in those various job classifications.
okay.
So we are at E, approval of job description and salary schedule, media center aid. Paula, you got your questions answered?
Sort of, thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Paul?
Yeah, I am just not sure until I see how it plays out. I can't see how that plays out until there's negotiations,
So it's a
so
yay, nay, or abstain?
I'll abstain.
We're looking for approval of a change order from SHM. Is there a motion to approve? I'll move to approve. Robert, is there a second?
I'll second.
Robert or Joe, give us some backup.
all right, so this change order is in the amount of about, it's $6,500. When SHN did the initial parking lot analysis, they didn't realize DSA was going to be asking for additional items for this one, or actually, I think it's 2 accessible parking spaces that we're trying to put in, one by the pool and one by the building there. And so this is in response, DSA has said we need this information. This is their additional fee for providing that information and seeing the project through.
I would really like to have somebody explain to me how dealing with 2 parking lots, parking spaces rises to the amount of $6,500 in a change order.
Terry.
My understanding is, I remember from when Mark was here, that those parking spaces had to be constructed differently than the regular parking lot.
Yeah, it's the engineering.
The blacktop wouldn't suffice, they had to be.
There's
constructed
level
according
with
to
other
very
areas.
Specific requirements by the state. If they had to be cement or something, or concrete, instead of flat, anyway.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the actual construction. This is just the approval process.
Right. Unfortunately. And some of the oversight of the construction part, but still. Terry did meet with them. And he said after speaking with them, he feels like it's reasonable this time. He said if there's another change order, we're gonna have an issue at that point. So.
And sometimes I feel like it's kind of, they got you over a barrel and they know it.
Right.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
And this comes out of the bond issue, bond money.
It does, yes.
Yeah, but it just means that's less money to spend on other things. To spend on
Right.
all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are at item G, approval of resolution 2021/22-4 Brown Act.
And so this resolution would allow the board to use the option to meet by Zoom when necessary to maintain public health and safety. It is not required for the board to pass. I just wanted you to know that this is a process that we can use during the state of emergency. The current format that we have with the hybrid is absolutely fine. We don't need an additional anything for that. What this would allow is, say, for some reason we had a huge spike and you needed to be at home, zooming from there. This would allow that to happen without you having to go through the Brown Act requirements for tele participation, which include that you have to make it accessible to the public. It has to be posted at whatever location you're at. It has to be put on the agenda where that'll be, and it can only be 2 members of the board that go to do that. The other 3 would have to be in person in whatever location. So again, this resolution isn't required, but if we do decide to adopt this resolution, we would need to bring it back every 30 days for approval to continue to have that flexibility throughout the state of emergency declared by the governor for the pandemic at this point.
Is there a motion to approve the Brown Act resolution?
I move that we approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion?
Yes. What concerns me here, unless you can maybe clarify it a little,
Certainly.
because it sounds to me like if people from outside want to come in, they may not.
No, it's just saying that if, because we say, like I said, we have a spike or something like that,
Right.
and we said it's no longer a good idea for us all to sit around this table, and we need to move to the Zoom, we could do that without having, we would have the ability to do that. It's mostly that right now, this is an open meeting, public could be in participation here in person or on Zoom. We're fine right now, the way we're running meetings. It's more, if we choose to go this route, it gives us the flexibility to have that Zoom meeting when we need to.
So explain to me, right now, there's a sign on the door that says the capacity is 10.
That's for students. That's part of why we're hiring the aide, is because Ms. Dorman, while she's working with other students on independent study, just can't monitor and safely ensure that other students can be in the library. So it's not about the capacity of the room.
It's not a COVID restriction?
No, it's a restriction just based off supervision for her right now.
So then if one of us can't come to a board meeting, or 2 of us is the max, then we would just let you know, and it had to, and then we would do a Zoom, right? and the rest would be in here?
Correct.
Okay, and so does it have
That
to
is
be a
without-
COVID?
That's without this resolution.
Yeah.
But with this
We
resolution
could all be on Zoom.
at one time?
Yes. Or two of you could be. The difference is right now, as the Brown Act stands, if you were Zooming from somewhere, you would have to have it posted at that place. We would have to have the address of that place on the agenda as it's posted. That place would have to be accessible. So say you were traveling and had a hotel room. You would have to open your hotel room to the public
Oh, God.
for the purposes of that meeting.
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing. So it's a pretty extensive requirement for that. This,
Think about it right now as an example, Paul, if you wanted to Zoom from your house,
And that's what I'm thinking,
then your home would have to be open to public
to drop by and Zoom with me.
unless we pass this resolution. If we pass this resolution and at some point we choose to have Zoom meetings, then because of a COVID spike here at the high school or whatever the case may be, even right now, because the governor has stated that it's basically a state of emergency with respect to COVID, we could, after passing this resolution and repassing it on a month-to-month basis, we could remain in Zoom meetings as a board and with the public via Zoom and no public interaction whatsoever at board meetings in terms of face-to-face.
Mhm.
So
But we could also continue to come in person.
we could continue to come in person. This just gives us the option at a moment's notice without having to go through a whole bunch of other hoops.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So it's been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Diane?
Aye.
Paula?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Robert? Myself, aye. So we are at, maybe we should have a little bit more discussion with respect to Zoom meetings or in-person meetings like we're having right now. Does the board have a preference?
Prefer in person, unless, of course, we have some medical reason or a spike in COVID or whatever.
Anybody else have?
Same thing. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I prefer in person, except that I know, I don't know this because it's been postponed 4 times, but I should be having an operation now at the end of December, which means the January meeting, I probably won't be able to wander around, which means I need to do a Zoom, okay? And so I didn't understand how that affected it, and I think that's only because you've got some dire reason
And we
that
can
you
cross-
shouldn't be person.
we can cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Moving on, we will go to item H, approval of school plan for student achievement for Becker program at school. And first, let's look for a motion to approve. Is there a motion up there?
I'll move to approve.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
And go ahead, Joe.
All right.
Maria?
Yeah, I was going to ask Maria maybe to speak to this, just because she did all the work with her site council on it. So,
Yep, I got it. Okay, so I wanted to call your attention to a couple of things on the single plan. You remember that the reason why you're approving the single plan now in October is because we have to do federal reporting at the end of this month, and it has to be approved by the board by that time. Because it includes our comprehensive school improvement funding, which is federal funding. And so some things that I wanted to call your attention to in the plan is, first of all, I sent you a board report explaining our needs assessment process that we carried out with Rebecca Bailey and Stephen Hahn from Mendocino County Office of Ed in terms of our absenteeism, our chronic absenteeism. And I explained that so that you could get more of an understanding about what that survey section of the SPSA was related to. So there were some actions that are new to this single plan. One of them is the CAPS network, the California Principals Network, where we are in a team of various several districts, learning to strengthen our professional learning communities and actually putting that into practice as we go. That's new. Also, the AVID training is not new. However, because we were able to send so many of our teachers, almost 3/4 of our teachers, we now have a very strong, a stronger presence of strategies within our school site, and we were able to put in place what we a support period at the beginning of the day with both AVID elective classes, which are taught by AVID elective trained teachers, and AVID academies, which are to support students in learning the skills to be able to learn or study and learn in language arts and mathematics. So it's like a support period for language arts and mathematics. That's new in this plan. Also supporting our students with social emotional curriculum, supporting student health with social emotional curriculum and adult social emotional learning. Because in our second step program, there's actually an adult section, an adult portion to that helps teachers to be able to experience and teach the social emotional skills that students need. And also our educational rounds, which are teachers observing and supporting other teachers in their specific subject areas in the classroom by doing classroom observations and debriefings after. And that is a research-based strategy. Also beginning our universal design for learning, starting to, so that we are making our curriculum accessible to all of our students. That is new to this plan. I wanted to let you know that in the plan, it does not have what we are using our Title I funding for yet, because we just talked about this in our site council and we want to solidify it a little bit more. But we are thinking about attendance success mentors that have been successful in other schools around our district, meaning individuals, adults who, students who have attendance problems check in with these adults, and it's a process to help them. And looking into some mind up strategies. These are mindfulness type of activities with kids, and some assemblies for students and staff in community building, between students and staff, community building. So those are some of they are not already in the plan. We are still looking to add the Title I funding into the plan. And that gives you sort of an overview. Does anybody have questions?
I just want to say how much I appreciate all the work that went into this with your staff and with your site council and with you, Maria. It's a tremendous amount of work, and it's a very thorough document. And just reading it, you can tell how much the administration and the staff that the world care about kids, so about their students. And I also want to say, you were talking about mentorship, is that mentoring makes a huge difference in kids' lives, that some adult reaches out and connects with that student and it makes a huge difference in that student's life. I was listening to a interview today on KZYX at noon. It was about this Black guy who ended up with a doctorate in Cuba and is a professor at the University of New Mexico, I think. But he was homeless from the time he was born until he was 4 years old, with an alcoholic mother and an incarcerated father. And it was, listening to this interview, it was one thing after another, after another, after another, where somebody reached out and offered him help, somebody else reached out and offered him help, somebody else reached out and offered him help. Some family took him in, they worked with him because he had no family skills, he had no school skills, he had nothing. And it was, his whole success was built on people mentoring him, people caring, whether they were in school with him or whether they were a neighbor or whether they were whatever. It was a wonderful story. I actually bought 2 of his books for the music staff at Bethel Road and the high school because I was so impressed with this man and his story. And mentorship makes a huge difference.
Maria, a couple of things I'd like to add to that is the amount of effort and work that went into changing your climate culture of this school. It really looked like you took an honest look at yourselves and you're putting a great effort towards changing that. The other thing is the AVID program. I mean, obviously by reading the document, your school-wide AVID program, and you're sticking to that and you're implementing it well. So thank you for all that work and kudos to the direction you're going and what you've done.
I think we'll see some results.
Thank you, Maria. Any further discussion? Any other questions?
I also want to say, I was taught at Bethel Road for 10 years, what a difference parents make in the success of students at that level. I remember parents of students that I had, that the parents didn't know where their kids were on the weekends and what they were doing at night. And it's really important for parents to have expectations for kids. I know my grandson who goes to Bethel Grove, I mean, he comes from a family where his parents know what he's doing and they expect him to show up for school and to have the work done. So it's really important parents involved at that age.
Any further? We'll call for the vote. All in favor of approving the school plan for student achievement at Becker Middle School, please say aye.
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 Thank you. We are at item I.
Thank you.
Welcome. We're, item I, approval of job description and salary schedule for elementary therapists, unrepresented classified.
All right. And so as we discussed, this is would be partially funded through our ESSER plan. We also received a grant from MTSS to put this in, and then another small portion coming from our early intervention plan through special education. So it's kind of a cobbling the funding together to meet this need. This person would be able to move from supporting the parents to supporting the students with behaviors across all of those environments, helping the parents engage. One of the minimum qualifications that we're expecting or is preferred is bilingual in Spanish and English. You know, that's an important part of this position as well, is to make sure that they can work with all parts of the community, that we get all of our students really on the right track so that we're not identifying as many students in our special education program in general, not just around our work is around the ED program, but it's really for all students. We want to intervene earlier, provide better supports for them, and make sure that we've got parents on board and that they're buying into the program as well. And so that's the point of this position, is to have somebody who's tied into that community and really supporting.
A motion to approve. Item I.
I need to be approved by the line.
Is there a second?
Aye. Second it.
For discussion.
Yes. So what I'm asking is, since it's, both things are listed, the elementary therapist is gonna work 195 days and the grant position was 180 days. Does that mean that money came into it? I mean, if this isn't looking for someone with an MFT and the LLS whatever's, I don't remember all those letters, but be the person who has a master's and went through social work and is a therapist, then I don't understand why it's there.
Because we have an MFT position that we are currently funding.
Oh, okay, and you funded at this rate?
Yes, through a separate grant that we had, the LCSSP grant through the county. And so that is that line. The other line is the position that we're discussing today. So that first line has already been approved with the exception of, we just added the days in, so there was clarity between the two.
Okay, and that position's filled.
Yes, it is.
So what you're looking for is someone who will work under them, so to speak? No.
Really alongside, just in different capacity, because this therapist position will be more behaviorally based than the MFT, which is really looking at the whole family system. So.
Okay, and if often kids in an ED class, not all the time, but sometimes, they're already seen by various services, most of which are based in Ukiah. Are they going to, I mean, it's kind of like double dipping. Would the district be encouraging the therapist to give them services here also?
I think it would be more that they would coordinate the services and make sure if the student needs that more in-depth therapy, that they're communicating between the school environment, the family environment, and that therapist, and be a professional who can kind of talk and make sure those are coordinated services. And that we're not double dipping, that we're not all, we're telling you to go left and this other person's telling you to go right, that kind of. So.
Well, I can also kind of give you a piece of information about the way that it's funded through our early intervention proposal is that we have to take, because we have over-identified kids for emotionally disturbed programs, we have to take 15% of the money we get for special education and put it towards early intervention. So if a kid has an IEP, they're more eligible for like counseling with the school psychologist or some of those services. The idea of this position is before a kid even has an IEP, we've got a district therapist who can give the parent some parenting classes. Say, oh, do you know about Tapestry or RCS or these other services? Parents might not even be aware that they exist. Or, hey, there's this program, Nuestra Alianza, and they have a great summer thing. So that particular position is partly funded through special ed dollars to help kids before they even need an IEP. That's not the full amount of the funding, but part of the funding comes from this plan that we have to do because we've already over-identified kids for IEPs with behavioral needs. So we really envision it as let's say the teacher says, I'm going to send a note home every day when you're doing well, and then the parent rewards them at home. This position person is going to talk to the parent and say, hey, what are some ideas of things that you can do to reward your kid when they're following directions? I hope that makes sense. So that's really the idea of this role, is to help families sort of know how to connect and engage and support their kids to be successful in school.
Okay, and then my only other question, Kelly, is about the caseload. It says that this person will have a caseload, but it doesn't say like 45 kids or anything like that. So is that supposed to be like a flowing, you service the kid for say 2 months and then they're out of the program and a new one comes in? It's that
Correct.
kind?
Yeah,
okay.
It's not a fixed term or anything like that.
Okay.
It'll be supporting that family while they're in need. There'll be some kids I'm sure that they're working with from day one all the way through, and other kids that just need that short-term intervention that we're hoping keeps them from moving further down the continuum of services there.
Oh, okay. Okay, like some little emergency or change
Correct.
in the family.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Good, then I understand it. Thank you.
Before COVID, I volunteered at Brookside and then also at Blosser and in my grandkids' classroom. And I certainly see the need for this kind of a position. And I know that Alex and I had this experience where we were both on Brookside campus at the same time. I can't remember why we were there, both there, but we were there at the same time for something. And there was this kid that decided he wasn't going to be in class, and he was just totally out of control, and had 2 staff members and then the principal, and it was totally disruptive, and it wasn't helping this kid at all. So being chased around the school, or being followed around the school, I should say. Chase sounds bad, but being followed around the school, and I've seen behaviors in classrooms in regards to kids that just need some direction on how to behave at school. So.
And that's the hope with this position. So.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are at item J, presentation and approval of California School Dashboard Local Indicators.
So this may sound like a new thing.
It's not.
It's not. It's been around. I think it may have gotten this last year because there was some confusion about when it was supposed to hit and that kind of thing. So this is really kind of picking up on that. Basically, there are local indicators in addition to state indicators. Most of those local indicators are we making progress toward and having conversations around these things, all the things that we are doing and moving forward with. So the first is around our basic conditions, the priority 1. So there are just 3 questions in that. It's the number or percentage of teacher misassignments and vacant positions. Currently, this is reported for last year. So that would be that we had 5 teachers that did not have full credentials. This year, I believe we're at 8. The number of percentage of students without CCS textbook access, that would be 0. And the number of identified instances where the facilities do not meet good repair would be 4 identified instances out of the 6 sites from last year. And the ones that didn't meet were mostly in the fair instead of the good area there. Priority 2 is implementation of state academic standards. We have a rating scale that I go through and fill out that's just talking about here's where we are on all of this. There's no penalty to being any particular area. So we're just very honest as we go through and saying whether we're emerging in a skill or we feel like we're doing pretty good on a scale of 1 to 5 with some different areas. But that we have been providing our ongoing academic or professional development and support for the state academic standards. Our instructional materials are aligned to state academic standards, and we're implementing assessments that align there. And those are kind of the big areas that they're concerned with in that priority. Priority 3 is parent engagement. So we do have a parent survey that goes out. We need to renew that, but these are some pre-COVID numbers that 91% of our parents say that they're satisfied with our schools overall. 85% felt that we had high expectations of our students overall, and 96% felt that their child feels safe or mostly safe at school. And so those were some good highlights. There are also some areas of need that we need to improve, and I think a lot of that has to do with having good communication, and thus the emphasis that you see in the other plans that we have around getting some of those liaisons and some of that family support and engagement there.
Joe, on that survey, what percentage of respondents actually replied?
I think in that one, when I looked, it was about 200 and some change responses. So not a huge response rate from the district. So that's another goal, is to get a more realistic response rate on our next round. So, and then finally, we have to talk about priority 6, the school climate. We do have the California Healthy Kids Survey that's administered to our students in 5th, 7th, and 10th grade. The results from 2021 are summarized. We have a full report that's out there. We have that 40% of students agree or strongly agree that the district promotes academic success for all students. So obviously some growth there that we have with our student population, believing that they are being supported. And the efficacy of that belief is a strong way to getting kids engaged from the research that we've looked at. 48% of students report that schools are safe or very safe. What this doesn't show is on this particular survey, there's about 35% of kids who just, there's a middle category that's like neither. And so about a third on almost every question said, just neither. They just went down that middle column, I think, as they went down. So there is a little caveat there. It wasn't that then 52% said that they weren't safe or not safe. It was really about 17% in that regard. So the unfortunate part is we don't necessarily get students identified so that we can go to them and say, what is it that you didn't feel was safe at our school, or that kind of thing. So that question always bothers me, because I want to follow up and have a conversation with a kiddo and say, how can we do better? You know, what are you feeling isn't safe about our school, so that we're hearing that perspective from everybody.
That seems like a fairly easy one to fix, though. I would argue that kids just need to know that there is someplace they can turn to, even anonymously, and make that statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, to me, that's just notifying the kids that there is an avenue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
if you filled out this survey and you felt that at some point you're not safe on our campuses,
let us know.
Please step up. Tell us what the issue is. Let's try to help.
I'll work with our admin on that to make sure that we have a anonymous.
Like you, I agree. That's troubling to have that hanging out there and not know what the issue is.
Yeah.
I think part of the issue in this day and age is social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that because of relationships at school, that things are posted online on social media sites, and then stuff comes back to kids from what was posted on social media at school, and there's not a division line anymore, and it's I think there's significant harm to kids feeling bullied or not safe or judged or whatever due to what's on social media, and it impacts their feeling safe at school.
I would agree.
I'll actually forward you a really interesting article from today's Wall Street Journal from a therapist about that very subject. So.
Thank you. We have 84% of our teachers agree or strongly agree that their school is supportive and inviting for student learning. And 74% of our teachers agree or strongly agree that the school promotes academic success for all students. So I try to keep some common themes among what was reported there. So definitely our staff have the heart for it. We just have to get our students believing that all those supports are there and that they are they have access to all of the supports that we're making available. And I think some of that is just marketing ourselves better, really getting out there and saying to students, did you know that you have all of these things that are available, that we're doing all these things to support you, and making sure that they know that those supports are going to be there no matter what, because they're our priority. We also have priority 7, access to a broad course of study. Always forget about this one, because I think that we actually do quite an exceptional job with the size district that we are, particularly by the time we get to the high school. Our TK through 5 students have access to instruction in the core subjects, as well as instruction in physical education, or will soon, support for English learners, and intervention support opportunities. Our 6 through 8 students have access to instruction in core academic subjects, as well as physical education, band, elective wheel, and newcomer support for English learners. And our 9 through 12 students have access to instruction in core academic subjects, as well as physical education, arts, our many CTE pathways, dual enrollment courses with the college, and newcomer support for English learners. And so as a result, we have met the standards for all 5 local indicators. Again, these are that we actually review and are working toward these things, not that we have any specific attainment of anything, that we're constantly just bringing these back up and taking a look at them. So that is the standard of this. It's kind of an odd accountability piece from the state around those things. So
do you think that there's been improvement just since in the last few years on priority two? I mean, the
Yes.
professional development in particular.
Yes, I
This
think
year
that-
sounds like it was a lot better than
Yes.
it has been. Last year, it seemed that there was a little bit of a start,
Mhm.
but this year, between paid days and things like that, it really looks like there was a big improvement.
There was. I would say this
Oh.
year we had a great implementation of that. And I think we'll just continue to. I mean, we're dedicating money within our
Yeah.
various plans to make sure that we can continue that development, because that one time, one shot thing is not, it's not effective. It whets your appetite, but it doesn't really go to the actual implementation of things.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. And so there's no, I mean, it says option 2 rating scale.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's just, they have option 1, which is just a long narrative, or option 2 rating scale. And the rating scale made more sense
Oh,
on
it
their
was the
side. So
form that you used then.
yes,
Oh,
it's
okay.
on the back end of things.
But
Sorry.
they don't check, no one cares that it's so much better this year, when all the rest are just, yeah, we're.
It's
working
for
on it.
our own personal
Oh, your own
edification.
self-evaluation.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks.
So that's just a presentation. We don't need to approve that. Or do we?
We do need to approve it as well.
Um,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Next.
I'll let Paula second. How's that?
Oh, thank you.
So it's been a motion approved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Yeah, the California dashboard is also online. You can go see all of that good stuff, and actually you can look back a couple of years since it was actually implemented. There is no 2020 data, unfortunately. And it's also interesting in terms of the ratings of how school districts are rated. Ukiah, for example, currently is rated number 40 in the state. And I don't quite get that, because when I look at their data, it's not impressively better than our own.
Right.
And yet, in someplace like Agalanes, which is rated number 1 in the state, they actually have some interesting data that's worth looking at. Truly impressive. So I'm not sure how the rating system works, but it doesn't appear to be, maybe there's just a wider scope of elements that they look at other than just academics.
And some of it's also the growth factor in there. So if they're making significant progress, then they get higher in the rankings at that point.
In any case, I was left a little bit baffled with respect to how that rating system works, but based on that, I would think, we could actually have been in that top 100, for example, out of the 1,100 school districts in the state. Nevertheless, it's been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion on item J? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We already dealt with item K. And I think we are at a point where we can, if anybody doesn't have any burning things for the next agenda. We were talking a little bit about the resolution. Do you want to include that for the next agenda?
Well, sure, I mean, that would be fine to me.
We'll talk a little more. I'll talk with Joe about it. We'll see.
Okay, you didn't get back to me, so I wasn't sure what you thought about mine.
No, I have no issue at all. I think it's worth exploring.
Okay.
Anybody else? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before, do we get a date for the discussion of the negotiations or whatever?
Rochelle and I will reach out to you
you'll work it
to,
out,
yeah.
tell us? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any dates in the next 2 weeks that they can't meet?
I'm thinking of going to Colorado to see my sister the last week of October, but she's not doing very well, but
Yeah.
but I haven't made any.
You want to ride with me? I'm going to Ouray, Colorado.
To where in Colorado?
It's called Ouray.
Oh, yeah?
It's
I'm going to
O-U-R-A.
You're talking about the 18th to the 31st, are you
Yes, ma'am.
figuring? Oh, okay. I'm good.
So the 20th.
I'm
Except
gone.
the
I'm leaving early on the 25th, so.
Okay.
Okay,
prior
so
to
we'll-
that,
the 25th
I'm wide
and
open.
now the
We'll try to go for something next week, maybe later in the week next week, if that would
20th.
Okay.
Sounds
that
good.
would work well. Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I moved it.
I don't, I have not moved it. No.
First day.
Diane made a motion.
There you go.
Made a motion that we adjourn.
3 seconds.
Can I stand up?
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody out in Zoom world.